Greetings, it's MK Mueller here with 8 to Great, and I just want to remind you, if you haven't subscribed yet, it really helps us to get this message out, and that's our goal. We have so much wonderful information to share with the world, and we love doing it on this free channel, but it really helps us out when you subscribe. So thanks so much for doing that. Looking forward to talking about how to set boundaries with adult children. Big topic. It's one requested by you, so let's get to it. I'm going to give you 3 examples today, and each one handles a different part of this important question. So first of all, let's take a look at who setting boundaries helps. I was excited to get an email from a young man many years ago who said, "I just wanted to thank you. I asked my mom to do me a favor, and she had been doing me that favor for a long time, and when she took your class, she stopped doing it. And I didn't like you for some time until I realized how much happier my mom is these days. Again, I just wanted to thank you. Sincerely, Justin." So, what is a boundary? It's helping that young adult see there is a place where I need to take over this responsibility. And when we reach that place, if we continue to do that for them, it's actually a disempowering act. It's actually saying, well, I don't think you can handle all of the responsibilities of being adult, so here, let me do these 3 or 4. It seems loving at the time because they'll tell you just how busy and overwhelmed they are, and certainly they are busy. Life gets overwhelming when you're a young adult or an older adult. But look back to your early 20s and 30s. You got through it somehow, didn't you? And I'm guessing most of our parents didn't rescue us. They set boundaries. Now, often the easy boundary back in the day was, oh, we can't afford that, or I'm just too busy, or I'm raising 5 other children, whatever. And that's an excuse you might not have. But that does not excuse us enabling our adult children, and that's what that is. So we're not going to go into a long definition of enabling, but if you haven't come across the term codependent, you might want to do some research on that particular topic, and maybe we'll cover that in another video. So what was the favor that the son was asking his mother to do? Should I do my adult son's laundry? Well, you can imagine this mom's thinking, well, I don't get to see him very often. This way he drops his laundry off every Thursday, and every Friday he comes to pick it up, so I get to see him at least twice, and I just miss him so much. Okay. So it is hard watching our kids go. It's like, I call it cutting the umbilical cord over and over and over again. Watching them leave the nest, grow up, and go out into the world is absolutely painful. We adore them. They are flesh of our flesh, right? we could not love them any more than we do. And we then are forced to get a life as they get their own lives. And again, that can be scary. And again, we'll talk about risk-taking on another video. But for now, let's just take a look at the reality. It's not helping them. So in answer to the question, should I do my son's laundry? At whatever age it is, the answer is no. Now, if you want to allow them to come in and use your laundry machine and do their own laundry, Slightly different matter. And we're going to talk about that. In each of these cases, there are nuances. This is not a hard set rule, but it's a guideline that I strongly suggest you follow. Let's take just a minute to review the golden, silver, and iron rules of parenting. Actually, of life, but it certainly applies to parenting. So the golden rule, of course, is do to others as you would have them do to you. The silver rule is do for yourself what you do for others. And the iron rule is never do for others what they can do for themselves. That reminds me of a mom who called not so long ago saying, I hear that you're a good life coach. And I said, well, that's great to know. And she said, so I'm calling to pay for a session for my son because he needs help getting a job. And I said, can I have 5 minutes of your time right now? And she said, certainly. And I said, I just need to talk to you about what's happening because he is fully capable, I'm assuming, of dialing a phone and having a phone conversation, yes? And she said, yes. And I said, but you're doing that for him. And so what that tells me is that there's a pattern of you doing things for him that he can do for himself. And I never allow others to make coaching appointments for adults. So if he wants to call, absolutely, we can talk, and whoever pays for that will be up to the two of you, but I am going to say that he will need to be the one that calls and makes the appointment. Does that make sense? And she said, it certainly does, and she thanked me. So here is the advice I've given to dozens, if not hundreds, of parents over the years. An adult child living with you needs to be charged something, unless they're going to school full time. In that case, that's a good use of their time, obviously. But if they're not going to college full time or trade school full time, then start charging them a small amount, $25, $50 a month. That's not much money, and it can be earned easily by raking leaves, shoveling snow, washing cars, donating blood, whatever. So they'll figure that out on their own. But then after 2 months at that low rate, it doubles every month. Now, this alarms many parents. Well, wait a minute, it doubles. Well, it's just going to double to what, $100? And then $200, a long way from what actual rent would be somewhere else. But it doubles from $100 to $200 to $400 to $800. Now, the other part of this guideline / rule is that if they can't do it, that they are locked out, that you change the locks, that their clothing items are boxed up and put in the garage, whatever you need to do to help them see that you are serious, because it's the loving thing to do. So again, you start off by 1 or 2 months at a very low rate, giving them time to do that work. But if you've been a parent who sticks with what they say, that follows through on what they say they're going to do, then they'll wake up and they'll get some kind of a job, which will then lead them to eventually their dream job. That's how that works, right? That's how it worked for you growing up as an adult. That's how it works for everyone. Now, I recall a mom who wanted to get her, this I think was a high school son, to move his items from the doorway. So he'd walk in from high school, his long day, drop his stuff right there on the steps and go downstairs to where his room was. But everybody else who came in that door then had to walk over his books and shoes and items, jacket. So one day she came to class and she said, what do I do? I've told him not to. I've warned him, not to do it anymore. And I said, warned him with a consequence? Well, I said, okay, what consequence could you give for his behaviors? And she sat there for a second. She's like, I can't think of any. And I said, okay, I'm going to leave the room, and I want this group to help her come up with a good consequence that might get his attention. And so she did. And when I came back into the room, they had decided that the best consequence, and she agreed with this, was to sit him down and say, if you ever leave your things there again, because I've asked you many times and you continue the behavior. So if you ever leave anything there again, I will take them to a safe locked place and you'll have to purchase them back from me. And here is the price list. I think it was $5 a shoe. And anyway. And she said, but my son doesn't have a job. And I go, oh, okay, he's going to have to get real creative in finding that money then, won't he? Or maybe not do it in the first place. Well, she had been one of those parents who had not in the past followed through on what she said she was going to do. So surely enough, he left them there again the next day. And surely enough, she wrote up the bill and took all of his items, put them in the trunk of her car in a box, and then gave him the bill. And he said, and she said, you can have it. He goes, I'm going to have that back by tomorrow. She goes, well, then you need to find that money, don't you? And he somehow found the money. And he never left any of his items in front of the door again. So, it's called tough love, isn't it? Tough love. So, that's the rent question. The third one I get often is, should I buy my son or daughter blank? Whether that's pay for all of their college, whether it's buy them a new car, a home even. And again, many of you probably have the funds to do those things. And oh my gosh, won't it be wonderful to just gift your kids all of these things? But 35 years of coaching has shown me that gifting without any responsibility on their part is not a loving thing to do. It only ends up with them resenting you, believe it or not, as well as you resenting them. And I've seen many, many parents who really could not afford to purchase those kinds of things, put themselves at great peril, great risk, just scrimping and saving to make sure they got the payments for that new car or whatever it was. So when you can say that there's a partial payment, in other words, I'll make this part of the payment, you make that part of the payment, and you have an agreement. And again, my strong guideline is 50-50. Let's say you want to purchase them a new car or a used car. Well, they get to choose. What car am I ready to pay half of? And all of a sudden, life gets much more realistic. Maybe a used car is just as good as a new one. So there you have it. Setting a boundary is a loving thing to do for both parties. And if you have any other questions, remember to subscribe below, comment below, and let us know what other questions we can talk about on our channel. Till next time.